I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am. I need to provide some background so everyone understands why this is such a huge deal. Our father walked out on us when I was 12 and my brother Jake was 9. He just left one day saying he needed space and never came back. No real explanation, no proper goodbye, nothing. I still remember that morning. It was a regular Tuesday. He kissed us goodbye like normal when we left for school, and by the time we got home, he was gone. Just a note on the kitchen counter saying he needed time to figure things out and would call soon. Mom was devastated. She had been a part-time teacher before this, but suddenly she had to support 2 kids on her own. She took up 2 more jobs, working as a receptionist during the day and doing data entry work at night. We had to move out of our house into a tiny 2-bedroom apartment because we couldn't afford the mortgage anymore. Mom sold her car and started taking the bus. She gave up her book club, her yoga classes, everything she enjoyed, just to keep us fed and clothed. I basically became a second parent to Jake. I would cook dinner, mostly mac and cheese and frozen stuff, but I learned, help him with homework, and make sure he got to school on time while Mom worked. We became really close during this time. Jake would crawl into my bed when he had nightmares about Dad leaving, and I would tell him stories until he fell asleep. We promised each other we would always stick together, always be honest with each other. Dad tried to contact us a few times over the years, but Mom always shut it down. The first time was about 6 months after he left. He showed up at our apartment with Christmas presents. Mom slammed the door in his face and cried all night. After that, he would send birthday cards with checks, but Mom would tear them up without letting us see them. She said if he couldn't be there when we needed him most, he didn't deserve us now. I agreed with her completely. Where was he when Jake needed braces and Mom had to pick up extra shifts to pay for them? Where was he when I had to skip my senior class trip because we couldn't afford it? Jake was always quieter about the whole thing. When Mom would get angry talking about Dad, Jake would just leave the room. I thought it was because it hurt him too much to think about Dad, but now I realize it might have been something else. Growing up, we didn't have much, but Mom made sure we had everything we needed for school. She was determined that we would go to college and have better lives. I got a scholarship to the state university, and Jake got into a good technical school. Mom cried at both our graduations. She was so proud that she had managed to get us educated despite everything. Last month, everything changed. Jake had come over to my place to hang out. We do this pretty often, watch bad movies and order takeout. He went to take a shower after spilling soda on himself and asked me to order food using his phone since mine was charging. That's when I saw them, messages from an unsaved number. The preview showed something about meeting for dinner next week. I normally would never snoop, but something made me open the conversation. It was Dad. Hundreds of messages going back 2 years. Talking about meeting for dinner, Dad asking about Mom and me, Jake updating him about his life, Dad giving him business advice. There were even photos, Jake and Dad at restaurants, at some kind of sports game, even one where they're both wearing party hats at what looks like a birthday celebration. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. Jake had been meeting Dad secretly for 2 years. Not just meeting him, having a real relationship with him. All while watching Mom work herself to exhaustion, all while letting me believe he felt the same way about Dad that I did. I confronted Jake as soon as he got out of the shower. He tried to grab his phone, but I held onto it, demanding explanations. He broke down pretty quickly and told me everything. Dad had tracked him down at his workplace 2 years ago. Just showed up one day during Jake's lunch break. Jake said he was angry at first, almost called security to have him removed. But Dad begged for a chance to explain, to try to make things right. According to Jake, they started with just one dinner. Dad apologized, said leaving was the biggest mistake of his life, that he thinks about us every day. Jake said he was skeptical at first but decided to give Dad a chance. Since then, they've been meeting regularly. Dad's even been helping Jake with his new business startup, giving him advice about suppliers and marketing. I was furious. How could Jake do this to Mom? She sacrificed everything for us while Dad lived his best life somewhere else. Jake kept saying I was being unfair, that people can change, that Dad has shown genuine remorse. We had a huge fight, probably our first real fight since we were kids. Jake said I was just like Mom, too stubborn to even consider forgiveness. I told him he was betraying everything our family stood for. He stormed out, and we haven't really talked since except for brief, awkward text messages. I've been sitting on this information for weeks now, torn between telling Mom and protecting Jake. Yesterday, Mom came over with an old photo album she found while cleaning. We sat on my couch looking at pictures from when Jake and I were kids, and she started talking about how proud she was that her children never betrayed her trust like their father did. About how we were the only good things that came out of her marriage, and how we would never hurt her the way he did. I felt sick to my stomach. Should I tell Mom about Jake meeting Dad? Jake made me promise not to, but I feel like I'm betraying Mom by keeping this secret. Every time I see her now, all I can think about is how Jake has been lying to her face for 2 years. Mom already has trust issues because of Dad. Finding out about this might break her completely. But doesn't she deserve to know? I'm lost. Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone for your advice and support. Reading through the comments helped me realize that I was letting my anger make decisions for me. Most of you said I should talk to Jake one more time before telling Mom, give him a chance to explain everything fully. You were right, there was a lot more to the story than I knew. I texted Jake asking if we could meet somewhere private to talk. He suggested coming to my place after work. When he arrived, he looked terrible, like he hadn't been sleeping well. That should have been my first clue that something was seriously wrong. We sat down, and I tried to stay calm while asking him to tell me everything from the beginning. That's when he dropped the bombshell: Dad has stage 4 lung cancer. He was diagnosed 6 months ago, and doctors say it's already spread to his lymph nodes. Jake found out when Dad missed one of their regular dinners because he was in the hospital. He has maybe a year left, probably less. Jake said he wanted to tell me sooner but didn't know how. Every time he tried to bring up anything about Dad, I would shut down the conversation immediately. He showed me pictures on his phone of Dad in the hospital. He looks nothing like I remember. He's thin, pale, with no hair because of the chemotherapy. It was shocking to see the man who I remembered as strong and healthy looking so fragile. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Remember how I mentioned Dad was helping Jake with his business? I assumed it was just advice, but I was wrong. Dad gave Jake $100,000 as startup money for his tech company. Jake tried to refuse at first, but Dad insisted. He said he had failed us as a father when we were growing up, and he wanted to do something meaningful for at least one of his kids before he died. I asked Jake the obvious question: how did we know this wasn't just another manipulation? How could we trust that Dad wasn't faking the cancer to get sympathy? Jake was prepared for this. He pulled out a folder with Dad's medical reports, hospital bills, and treatment plans from one of the biggest cancer centers in the state. Everything looked legitimate. There were scan results showing the tumors, treatment schedules, everything. Dad has been going through aggressive chemotherapy for months now. I was still trying to process all this information when we heard a key in the lock. Mom has a spare key to my apartment for emergencies, and she sometimes drops by with groceries or just to chat. Before either of us could move, she walked in, carrying a bag of what looked like my favorite takeout. The medical reports were spread out all over my coffee table. Mom saw them immediately, and more importantly, she saw Dad's name on them. She stood there frozen for what felt like forever, just staring at the papers. Then she picked one up, and I saw the exact moment she understood what she was looking at. The fallout was worse than anything I could have imagined. Mom didn't just get angry, she completely broke down. She started screaming at Jake, things I'd never heard her say before. Called him a traitor, said he was dead to her, said he was just like his father, a liar and a snake. I tried to explain that I had just found out too, but she wouldn't listen. She convinced herself that we had both been lying to her all along, that we had been secretly meeting Dad for years. Jake tried to explain about the cancer, tried to show her the hospital photos, but that made everything worse. Mom said Dad was probably faking it all for attention, that he was just trying to manipulate his way back into our lives now that we were successful. She said he probably wanted to play the dying father card to clean his conscience. The things Mom said to Jake were horrible. She brought up every sacrifice she had made for us, every time she had gone without food so we could eat, every Christmas she had worked double shifts to buy us presents. She said Jake had thrown all of that back in her face. When Jake tried to hug her, she physically pushed him away. She left after saying she needed time away from both of us. Jake tried to follow her, but she threatened to call the police if he didn't leave her alone. She was crying so hard she could barely drive. I wanted to stop her, but she locked herself in her car. Jake is completely devastated. He keeps saying he just wanted to give Dad a chance to make things right before he died. He said he never meant to hurt Mom, he just didn't know how to tell her. I'm still angry at Jake for keeping secrets, but seeing Mom's reaction made me wonder if we could have handled this better. Mom isn't answering calls or texts from either of us. Jake's girlfriend called me yesterday to say Mom is staying with our Aunt Linda. Apparently, she's not eating properly and barely leaves the guest room. Aunt Linda is worried about her mental health. Jake tried to go to Aunt Linda's house to talk to Mom, but our cousins formed a literal human barrier at the door and wouldn't let him in. Word has spread through the family, and most of our relatives are taking Mom's side. Jake's been getting angry messages from aunts and uncles he hasn't talked to in years. I don't know what to do now. I'm stuck in the middle. I understand Mom's pain and sense of betrayal, but I also see how much Jake is suffering. He truly believed he was doing the right thing by giving Dad a chance before he died. Now everything is falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it. Update 2: things have gotten even more complicated, and honestly, I didn't think that was possible. After weeks of silence, Mom finally agreed to meet me for coffee. I picked a quiet cafe far from her neighborhood to avoid running into anyone we knew. When she arrived, she looked different. She'd lost weight, and her hair was graying at the temples. She seemed calmer, but there was this coldness in her eyes I'd never seen before. She ordered black coffee and didn't touch it for the first 20 minutes. We sat in awkward silence until she finally started talking. What she revealed changed everything I thought I knew about our family history. Dad had another family when he left us. Mom found out about a year after he disappeared. One of her friends saw Dad at a shopping mall with another woman and a baby. Mom hired a private investigator with money she had been saving for our college fund. That's how she discovered Dad had been living a double life for 3 years before he left us. His other girlfriend was pregnant when he walked out. They had a daughter together. Mom never told us to protect us from the pain. She said knowing our father left us for another family would have destroyed us as children. She was probably right. Jake was already having nightmares just from Dad leaving. Imagine if he knew the whole truth. I left the cafe feeling numb and drove straight to Jake's office. I needed to know if he knew about this too. The look on his face when I walked in told me everything. He knew. Dad had told him everything 6 months ago, even introduced him to his half-sister, and Jake had been keeping that secret too. Our half-sister's name is Emma. She's 15 now, which means Dad got her mother pregnant when I was 12. Jake had pictures on his phone of him and Emma at some arcade. She looks just like Jake, same nose, same smile. They've been hanging out regularly for the past few months. Jake said he was waiting for the right time to tell me about her. I lost it. I started yelling at him right there in his office. His employees could probably hear everything, but I didn't care. Jake kept defending Dad, saying he's changed, that he regrets everything, that he's trying to make amends before he dies. But all I could think about was how Jake chose to have a relationship with not just Dad, but this whole other family that destroyed ours, all while keeping it secret. Jake said Emma is innocent in all this, that she's just a kid who wants to know her siblings. He said she grew up knowing about us, seeing our pictures, wondering why her big brother and sister never wanted to meet her. Apparently, she was excited when Jake agreed to meet her, brought a whole photo album of her life to show him. I couldn't deal with it. I left Jake's office and drove around for hours, trying to process everything. When I got home, I had dozens of missed calls from family members. Mom had told everyone about Jake meeting Emma. Our relatives are furious, not just about Jake meeting Dad, but about him embracing this other family that caused us so much pain. Mom called me yesterday. She's talking about changing her will to remove Jake completely. I tried to talk her out of it, saying she was making decisions while emotional, but she's adamant. She said Jake made his choice when he chose to play happy families with Dad and his replacement daughter, her words, not mine. She doesn't want him to get anything from her after she's gone. Jake says he doesn't care about the will, he just wants Mom to understand. He's been trying to get Dad to talk to Mom directly, to explain everything before it's too late, but Dad's health is deteriorating fast. The cancer has spread more aggressively than doctors expected. They're saying he might not even have the year they initially thought. Emma has been texting Jake constantly, asking to meet me. Jake forwarded me some of her messages. She sounds like a sweet kid who's just trying to understand her family. But I can't bring myself to meet her. Every time I think about her, I remember Mom crying herself to sleep, working 3 jobs, sacrificing everything while Dad was playing Father of the Year with his new family. I feel like our family is shattering into even smaller pieces, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Update 3: Dad died last week. It happened much faster than anyone expected. The cancer spread to his brain in his final month, and he declined rapidly after that. Jake was there when it happened. He'd been spending nights at the hospital. I wasn't there. I couldn't be there. Part of me regrets that now, but a bigger part knows I made the right choice for my own peace of mind. Mom refused to attend the funeral. When Jake called to tell her about Dad's death, she hung up on him. I sat with her that day. She didn't cry, didn't say anything, just stared out the window for hours. Finally, she said, "He died as he lived, with his real family by his side." That sentence broke my heart because I could hear how much pain she was still in after all these years. I decided not to go to the funeral either. I couldn't bring myself to stand there with Dad's other family, watching them grieve while knowing they got all the years with him that we should have had. Jake went. He said the church was packed. Apparently Dad had built quite a life for himself after abandoning us. Emma gave a speech about what a wonderful father he was. Jake said our aunts and uncles from Dad's side were there, people who knew about us all along but never reached out, never checked if we needed help when Mom was working herself to death to feed us. After the funeral, Jake came by my place. He looked exhausted, like he'd aged years in just a few days. He brought a letter Dad had written to me before he died. I threw it in the trash without reading it. Jake got angry, called me childish, said Dad had spent his last days writing it. I told him Dad had 16 years to write me letters and chose not to. We had another huge fight. Jake said I was just like Mom, holding on to anger instead of trying to forgive. I told him he was just like Dad, betraying his family's trust. He said I was being unfair, that he was just trying to keep everyone connected, that Emma asks about me all the time. I told him I didn't want to hear about Emma, that she got the father we should have had. Mom is still firm about changing her will. She's already met with her lawyer. She's also told all our relatives about Jake's relationship with Emma, so now most of the family isn't talking to him. Even our cousin Sarah, who was Jake's best friend growing up, has blocked him on everything. Jake's business is struggling because of all this. Dad's money helped him start it, but now some of our relatives who were early investors are pulling out. They say they can't trust him anymore. Jake says he doesn't regret giving Dad a chance, but I can see the toll all this is taking on him. His girlfriend told me he's not sleeping, barely eating. I've decided to go low contact with Jake. I can't cut him off completely, he's still my little brother and I practically raised him. Those memories don't just disappear. But I can't trust him the same way anymore. Every time I look at him, I remember how easily he lied to us for 2 years. Mom has blocked Jake completely. She says she needs at least a year before she can even think about talking to him again. Aunt Linda says Mom is in a deep depression, barely leaving the house except for work. Emma keeps trying to contact me through social media. She made a long post about finally meeting her big brother and hoping to meet her sister someday too. I had to deactivate my accounts. Some people might think we're being too harsh, that families should forgive each other. But betrayal like this doesn't heal easily. The funny thing is, Dad dying didn't bring any closure, it just left us with more pain, more questions, and a family broken in ways that might never be fixed. Maybe someday we'll find a way to be a family again, but for now, this is how things need to be. I've learned that sometimes the hardest part of family isn't losing someone, it's losing your trust in the people you thought you could always count on.